I was hard-pressed today to pick between two excellent-looking replays, and I decided, you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and take a look at them both? So welcome back, everybody, to the BrightWorks, where today we're going to be taking a look at two different matches that were played very recently on the Beyond All Reason ladder. Two matches that were submitted over on my Discord channel, which, of course, there's a link to down below in the description section, in case you'd like to join up in the BrightWorks community. You can also do that by hitting the subscribe button, or just commenting or liking or anything like that, participating around here. There's a lot of fun people that you meet if you do so. Anyways, Humble Shell, well and away. Have to get that out of the way right and foremost before I forget to do it. I do forget to do it all the time. Today, spawning on the red side as our red team leader and Armada commander, the commander that goes by that, commander that goes, anything you need, let me know, I'm following your lead. Okay, a little bit of teamwork right here coming out from the red team. Excellent stuff. Interrupting me, but excellent stuff. Definitely well worth it here. Frost, I'm gonna go with Frost. The red commander here, Frost, going to be leading the red team. 39 open skill and some silver tail on that chevron as well. Going to be showing us what they've got right here on the front lines of All That Glitters. Everyone's favorite map. I've received like 20 replays on All That Glitters recently. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe you hooligans have been playing a lot more than recently. Either way, I feel obligated to cast games on All That Glitters every once in a while just to make sure that the metas aren't shifting too drastically. I've heard pray tell about a very specific type of play style that's been popping up more and more recently. I've been looking out for a good replay of involving specific rush strategies. Can't wait to go check out a replay about that, but I don't think that's what happens here because it looks like there's a little bit of a play for a tremor going on. Interesting. Let's meet our blue team leader and we'll talk about why that's so interesting here. It's T-Surya, or T-Surya? Or T-Surya. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this one. I think the TS is pronounced like tse, like just you put them together, tse, but then it's Syria. Maybe it's just supposed to be Syria or something like that. Anyway, we'll go with Syria, the blue commander here. Hopefully I'm not butchering that too horribly. Parentheses, probably am, end parentheses. The reason why the rush strategy is so interesting on All That Glitters is because traditionally this map has been figured out, right? It's one of those maps that's been solved. Everyone plays their lane, everyone plays their role, and so whenever we see a break from the meta, it can be very refreshing in a way. It can also be very frustrating. I've seen a lot of people complain about people doing that, and I have to say, if you find a strategy that wins you the game at the end of the day, as long as it's not a glitch, right? Glitches are different, but as long as it's not a glitch per se, yeah, I feel like it's worth taking advantage of. Certainly you could consider it a build order counter, right? If you expect your opponent, or if the opponent does produce the exact same build over and over and over again, and you just so happen to know that that's the build that they're going to go for, and so you make a bunch of units that hard counter that, or you do something to hard counter that, I don't necessarily think that's cheating per se. I think it's just I think it's a good way to play strategy games. Yeah, I think that's appropriate, I would even say. Shuriken here, making a lovely time for these rovers that are blasting away at a whole bunch of these units right now. Looks like mass vehicle production is going to be the name of the game for the red team. Lovely stuff indeed. Blame Noobs, the brown commander, going to be stepping through the trenches over here on the left-hand side, the mountain pass, if you will. Going to be trying to defend this lane from aggressors. That's the traditional role we see anyways. Maybe there's something special coming up right now. A flood of ticks headed across the map as well. My goodness, 17 ticks in total. And it looks like we are going to micro a lot of them back here. Some of them will die. Some of you may die. But it is a sacrifice that sucks oh, wow, actually, I can't say that. Glad I said Flux. That's not what their name is. But anyway, Sucks, the hot pink commander, manages to sneak a bunch of these ticks through and actually pops quite a few metal extractors. Yeah, 2 go down on the front line. Another one goes down here as well. A little bit of a splitties on those ticks means that they get into the back line and start to tear away at all of the infrastructure. What a beautiful, simple little play right here from the early game backline opener. And just like that, you can see the entire economy right here for the green commander is crippled. Yeah, quite harshly. Not done yet either. These ticks do manage to find an opportunity to sneak back into the base over here of the lavender commander, Go Hug Ohu 007 or single 07. More ticks also finding some more metal extractors. Shurikens eventually paralyzing a whole bunch of this. But my goodness, if this wasn't a successful attack. Beautifully done right here. Scavenger Defense AI in a whole bunch of trouble. Shuriken managing to paralyze this, but it's a lot of fires to put out all over the place. And a relatively inexpensive cost to do so. Yeah, the hot pink commander finding immense value in the early game here. Doing a wonderful job of using those very, very cheap early disposable Armada scout units to actually find value across the map. Shutting down loads of those metal extractors and taking offline the economy right here for the green commander. Now, To a certain extent, the Green Commander has managed this perfectly, in the sense that we're rebuilding these metal extractors as quickly as possible, getting them back up and running just about as fast as we can, making sure to constantly be expanding the infrastructure forward with the Commander as well. Always very important, because it's one way that you can stabilize yourself from early damage like that. By just going ahead and continuing to expand, right? You just expand forward and deny that metal to your opponent, and then they do damage to you, but you cancel it out by claiming land that would be theirs, essentially doing damage to them. Frost in a lot of trouble right here. Yeah, Commander down to just 31% HP. That Aggravator as well as that Thug have been firing away at this Commander for a good long while. Oh, Janus tanks on the front here, though, and that means that the Lavender Commander is going to be forced offline. Going to be in a difficult way. So, did I mention that this replay was very quick? I'm not surprised to see so. It looks like both of these teams operating with lots of coordination. Usually the more coordinated a team is, the more likely they are to succeed. Yeah, missile truck's quite nice. They do offer quite a lot of line of sight range, which means that those Januses can actually fire out at their full range potential. Obviously very useful to fire at your full range, because it means that you'll outrange any units of the enemies that are mirror matchups but don't have the same level of scouting ability, right? They can't actually see as far as your units go. In a game that's symmetrically balanced, we're close to being asymmetrically balanced with the introduction of Legion shortly. Yeah, I say shortly, I should be careful to claim that. It's in progress right now, and work is being done every day. With Legion coming out, maybe that asymmetric balance will come more into play, but at least for the time being, with symmetric balance between Cortex and Armada, it means that you have to find advantages in ways that aren't necessarily unit compositions. You have to look for things like denying radar jamming, denying tick spam or scout spam, anything like that. All things that are important to consider when essentially you're making the same units as your opponent on the other side of the map. Now, I hear tell talk of a tremor coming out at some point. 6 minutes is about time for T2, and indeed the Maroon Commander has gone ahead and gone up to T2. Canestro Anale, the Maroon Commander, going to be going ahead and building some of those T2 bots, handing them out to the team. Nice little jump right here from a couple of grunts from Kakio Imperator, the Pink Commander right here, who has managed to get those grunts to engage against the Rocketeers. Not bad whatsoever. Rocketeers doing a decent job of defending themselves, especially with the grunts standing still. They will be dealt with eventually here. Blue Commander on the front line provides a lot of vision. Also some radar here, which is very crucial for these bots to fire forward. Wouldn't mind seeing a static radar thrown up, though, for that extra long line of sight range. Bit of a sacrifice on the left-hand side. The Brown Commander falls right here to the heavy and light laser towers over on the White Seraph front line. Does mean that the vehicles are going to move into position here, but we don't have any Wolverines, which would have been a very simple, inexpensive counter to all of this static defense. If you're already vehicles, going for a couple of Wolverines is a very cheap option that already hard counters every T1 static defense, save for Gauntlets and Agitators. No reason why this Commander should have gone down here, and with the construction turrets here as well, the Blue Commander is going to be more than capable of just reclaiming that wreckage. Going to do it with the Commander instead here. No reason to risk it, but I suppose there's not really that much of a risk at this point. Seraph overwhelmed by the ticks here. Low energy means the LLTs and the Commander can barely fire too. I actually managed to bring that Commander down pretty low. It's pretty funny. Wow, okay, well, a critical E-stall right here for the Blue Commander does mean that there's no energy to actually fire the static defenses. What an unfortunate turn of events. All that metal and static defense, and what is it good for? Well, nothing at all if it can't fire itself because you've built too much build power and not enough solar panels in the backline. Just like that, the Blue Commander, with that wind energy down, is going to lose this front line because of a crucial E-stall. A brutal way to go, certainly after such a dramatic win right there, taking down the Brown Commander. Meanwhile, Syria is continuing to push forward here. The Blue Commander, the Blue Armada Commander, going to be stepping forward right now and firing away into this line of tanks. And you can't afford it, yeah. Kakio Imperator needs to move those tanks back. As soon as the Rocketeers build up to such numbers that they can start to one or maybe two-shot tanks, you really do get yourself into a tricky situation where your tank lines need to be constantly moving all the time. So the Green Commander goes down over here on the left-hand side. Little run by force from the Red Commander manages to blast down the Green, and it will leave a juicy 1,000 metal lying on the field right here. Well, the Red Commander continues to step forward. 31% HP on this Commander, getting very low, but also doing a wonderful job of blasting away at a bunch of these units. Nice D-guns right there, connecting with a bunch of the units. Aggravator goes down. More Aggravators reinforcing right here. Not the end of the world. Not the end of the world at all. But definitely a little bit uncomfortable for... yeah, for our Lavender hero over here on the right-hand side. Wolverine's now out and available, but we also have Shell Shockers pumped out by Torkel, the purple commander here on the front lines as well. Starting to shell away at a bunch of those static defenses. We do have a gauntlet up on the high ground here as well. All right. Not bad at all. I love a good gauntlet on a high ground position. We already have one of them up and running here as well, and it's been firing away for a good long while. Wow. What a turnaround of this front line. Completely turned around. Wolverines and gauntlets and all the rest of it firing away right now. Everything they can, firing away, trying to take down as much of this static defense as possible. Yeah, you know what? This gauntlet is getting immense value. Wouldn't mind seeing it put in its hierarch mode as well, so we could fire over this mountain and actually land on top of these shell shockers over here. Not the end of the world, but certainly very, very annoying if you can manage to get that connected. Can you hold this for 2 minutes so I rebuild defenses? Cries out White Seraph. I love the teamwork. I love the teamwork. Torkel agreeing to that proposition since the blue commander has already pushed this line so far forward. Going for a forward T2 lab as well here. Showcasing some very aggressive but very successful play. Frost in a little bit of trouble. Yeah, Janus Tank's going to thwart a lot of this. We do have basically a straight up T2 rush. Yeah, the red commander went as far as to take down that front line just so that the blue team wouldn't feel comfortable going into T2 there, instead producing units, and then actually pivoted hard into this T2 tech as soon as that T2 constructor arrived. I like it a lot. Of course, getting that big tech advantage does mean that you're going to be able to pump out more and more T1 units as time goes on, or of course step up into those T2 that are going to be a little bit more efficient, if not a little bit more expensive. Construction turrets on the high ground here, building the gauntlets still. You know, I don't even mind it. Yeah, these gauntlets actually have quite a lot of range, and they can fire away at a lot of stuff. There is a jammer around here somewhere, so it's blocking a lot of that. Oh, there's a jammer right here. It looks like we must just not have line of sight with a radar tower. Unfortunate limitation right there. Sirius suffering from success. Now having such a large front line that he's having to T2. Or rather, he's having to 1v2. He is T2, but he's also 1v2. A T2 1v2. I guess if you are to 1v2, going for a T2 to 1v2 is going to be quite useful. Anybody follow me through that barrage of words going on right there? I hope so. I hope somebody made it. Lightning turret coming up right here. The Frost, the red commander, moving into position to try and degun right now. Mostly just focused on trying to get as many of those T2 metal extractors up and running as possible. Janus tanks moving back into position over here. Every time that one of those fires, it does cost quite a lot off the HP pool of the blue team here, the Lavender player specifically. Scavenger Defense AI also going for that forward T2 lab. I guess I don't mind that forward T2 lab, but it definitely feels like a heavy investment on the front lines. If it should go down, it would be a massive blunder. Much easier for it to get sniped when, of course, it's ever so much closer to those enemy units. Anti-nuke coming up and online right here for the Maroon Commander. The, the Tank Commander, there it is. Frost going for one of those tremors. The Cortex T2. What do we even call this thing? It's a heavy armored artillery piece? Yeah, heavy artillery vehicle. Fires a barrage of bullets, an ungodly amount of bullets, up into the air and down upon the enemy. It's a hierarch vehicle, so it can fire up and over the hills right here, which is always lovely if you're having to deal with that sort of terrain. Being able to just ignore it by firing over it is always quite valuable. Not to mention, of course, with this Cortex Lab, you also have access to a lot of other good tools. You have the Zars, you have the Salamanders, you have Banishers too, which work as a crude form of anti-air, but also, of course, a big, heavy single-target damage dealer. Makes for a very effective tool. And there we go. Tremor now firing away into the distance, looking to connect with as much of this army as possible. They're forced out of position right here. Means that the red commander can step forward. A tremor rush. Interesting. A tremor rush of all things. Agitator versus Gauntlet battle up on the high ground here. A rather weird battle, especially considering we have two agitators and they're losing. This agitator in hierarch mode isn't firing nearly fast enough. And with the repair, I think eventually this this Gauntlet is actually going to be able to do it. This agitator, pardon me, is actually going to be able to do it. This tremor is devastating, though. Yeah, look at the range on these bad boys. Their effective firing range is massive. Also, the area that they can effectively deny by firing into is tremendous. All of it makes for a really good argument for not pushing into that direction. Wow, it's just mass tremor. Okay. Well, here come the Bulls. If they have anything to say about it, they're going to be blasting those Tremor apart in mere moments. Frost sacrificing a Tremor to get the Bull. Tremor is costing quite a bit more than a Bull, though, nearly double the price. Actually, yeah, almost exactly double the price there. Red Commander goes down. Tan Commander needs to move those units into position to save the Tremors. Tremors could definitely win this front line, but it's a matter of keeping them alive until they can do so. Tremor's not the kind of unit that gets value immediately. You sort of have to consistently keep them firing at the enemy over time in order to get any real value out of them, and they just haven't had that time yet in this game. Banisher is quite the opposite, though, firing in every missile getting value. Very, very especially useful against those fast-moving targets. The fact that they can lock onto a target and fire away makes them very, very good for dealing with things like lightning tanks, which the Armada commanders are very quick to reach for basically every time. Thugs waddling their way in here. LLT is actually going to be put to work right now. We do also have some Shuriken in the air, trying to paralyze what they can. Not bad. Banisher tanks, really the stars of the show, though. Tremor on the high ground. Termites crawling up and on the high ground there as well will spot that Tremor, so it won't be able to stay up there. But it's not like there's any other number of sources of Tremor, or mountains here that we could put that Tremor on, that it wouldn't be a massive annoyance. Huge bombing wave coming out from the Yellow Commander as well. These is just a whole bunch of Whirlwind bombers, the T1 Cortex bombers, not the Armada ones. We saw those Stormbringers in the last game. And they devastate whatever they should happen to target. Just like that, the enemy air lab does go down. Means no more air production here for Kuverty. Been well outproduced right now by the Yellow Commander. Going in again for the fusion reactor. Just like that, reduced to slag. And those bombers aren't quite done yet. With no real air defense, the blue team is in a load of trouble right now. It's a decent position over on the left-hand side. We do have rocket spiders coming up and online, so those will be tricky to deal with on the fronts here. Massive bombing runs, though, taking out all the wind turbines of the blue player. And man, it's moments like this where you gotta wonder if Armada bombers are ever worth it, considering their main strategy is their ability to carpet bomb things. Why not just build more Cortex bombers? Yeah. Why not just build 10 extra Cortex bombers and then send those into the enemy base? A question I'll never have a decent enough answer for. Here they come, ready to ravage the backline base, now inherited by the blue player that left, or the blue team player that left in the back here. The E-converter right there, you can rewind and see the E-converter wreckage. Hardly ever get to see those because, well, they're so explosive. But there we go. Falling slowly but surely, the fusion reactor will pop. Metal extractor is going to come down hard here too. And we're streaming T1 out to the front lines. Despite all this damage from the bombers, the blue team is still slightly ahead in eco. Very, very close, depending on reclaim, of course. I guess the bombers haven't really targeted the eco structures yet. Most of the economy is still metal extractors out on the map, not necessarily advanced fusion reactors, E-converters, all that sort of stuff. Taking down the production, though, very, very effective. And you can see maybe the damage numbers, a better reflection of the way that this has gone. 39% in favor of the red team. Basically 130-ish thousand extra damage for the red team as opposed to the blue. Flak trucks finally roll out from the purple laboratory. All the way on the other side of the map. All the way from the front line anyways, on the left-hand side of the map. Finally pushes those bombers back. They're not quite done yet, but they're definitely repelled for the time being. More flak trucks going to be necessary, considering that your air player is now completely knocked down to T2. Or pardon me, T1. We're resurrecting the lab, which is always great, but there's no build power here, so we're going to need to get a con to rebuild all of that as well. Bombers coming back in to take out the forward T2 lab. And it's just brutal watching those bombers continue to get so much value on these fronts. Every one of these unguarded frontline bases suffering immensely as the bombers connect with them. Blasted to debris, my goodness. Bombers finally die as those flak trucks manage to shoot them out of the air. But my goodness, they really did find immense value. Just taking out a whole bunch of those production structures. Yeah, that's about half of 3,000 metal, about 1,500 metal, right down the drain. Tremor is now being airlifted up onto the high grounds here. Hilarious. I think the red team can go ahead and win this game. If they can just step forward, rush through the green players, defenses that have been set up here. We do have the Seafoam Green Commander pumping out Marauders desperately to the front line here. We're on 1 Aphis, 1 regular fusion. It's enough to produce Marauder, but not a lot of them. Left-hand side looking dangerous here as well. Oh, yeah. Oh, Geoplasma Battery, though, is going to be wonderful for defense. What an excellent maneuver right here from the Brown Commander. Having the forethought to go ahead and put down a Geo Battery instead of a advanced geothermal for the defense is actually a wonderful maneuver. You know that if you're ever going to be, if you're ever going to lose this lane, it'll be nice to have some sort of static defense, and the Cerberus is definitely a compelling one. You can see how much damage it really does. Those are heavy tanks, and it's melting them pretty nicely. Yeah. Tanks have made it to the backline, but they've become APM stalled at this point. There they go. Continuing their aggression, but a couple of incisors will move into position, pawns as well, to try and intercept these, shutting them down before they can really find all too much value. Nicely done. Right-hand side in a lot of shambles. Frost scouting forward right here, only to realize just how little there really is over on this side. Transports with tremors, my goodness. What a funny strategy. Let me get a little clip of that. It's beautiful. The tremor transport strat. Dropping a tremor up on the high ground here where there's no way that you're going to be able to clean it up. You need effectively spider bots or air forces in order to clean this up. With the air forces that have been patrolling around, this tremor is free reign to just fire away into the distance, and just like that, starts firing directly into the green base here of Scavenger Defense AI. What do you do if you're the green commander in this moment? Suddenly your base is beset upon by artillery seemingly coming from nowhere. Looks like the green commander is going to rush over to this side to try and hopefully shoot this down. Looks like the Hephaestus medium air transport. Oh, that's right. So there was recently a update that allowed for basically 2 different types of transports, a light and a medium. Basically, the light transport able to transport units and whatnot like normal. The medium transport's able to carry heavier units. Basically enabling, basically in order to address the commander changes, right? So you still have the Skyhook, the heavy transport, but if there's a T1 lab, there should be, yeah, the Hephaestus medium air transport and the Hercules light air transport. Transport that's susceptible to light anti-air. You get the idea. As far as the way that it actually works, I believe it's all based around the metal cost of a unit. So the more metal a unit costs, the heavier it is, quote unquote. Which, I mean, I don't know about you, that feels like it makes perfect sense. Yeah, I dump 1,000 metal into something, it should be quite a bit heavier than something I dump 500 metal in. At some point you get just too heavy and those Hephaestus can't, or rather the Hercules can't pick you up. You have to switch over to the Hephaestus. Do we have any Armada air labs? I would love to see what the Armada ones are. I haven't seen them yet, actually. Did not take a look the last time I played with that setting. The red team pulling a distinct advantage at this point. The right-hand side looking phenomenal. The Banishers firing away at the Marauder here, actually finding a phenomenal trade. Marauder just skinny enough in the armor plating that they're susceptible to Banisher fire. But also, because the Banisher has the range tracking, it can deal with Marauder quite a bit easier than a lot of other units can. Tick spam leaking through. Uh-oh. Ticks have found the wind turbine ball over here. They're running away from it, though. Always funny when little spams of units break through defensive lines, but then the commanders don't realize it. So we have all these ticks that could be microed around to kill all these metal extractors and whatnot, but they're just completely clueless. There's all these ticks sitting around all over the place, could be getting so much value, and instead they're just running on past. I'm definitely guilty of it too. I won't even deny it. I'm absolutely guilty of it as well. Frost, by the way, taking advantage of this opportunity path to walk the commander into the enemy backline. Oh my goodness. There goes the air lab. Cuverti. You have to make the ultimate sacrifice, my friend. Pinging like mad, trying to figure out a solution. What in the name? There we go. Slips the D-gun past that commander. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Good try. Somebody tell Cuverti that you can't D-gun commanders anymore. They've developed anti-D-gun armor. You have to pull out your laser gun and blast them. Frost just walking by. Oh no, Caverty doesn't understand. He's cloaked, so it set his commander on hold fire. So he doesn't understand. There we go. His teammate telling him to uncloak will mean that the commander eventually kills the red commander there. But my goodness, what a tear. What a hilarious turn of events right there. Siegebreaker's pushing forward here as well. Oh, glad we got a second to take a look at these. Siegebreaker is part of the expanded unit pack, part of the proposed units, I believe. They're looking to implement these right now. They're being balanced. They're trying to figure out what to do with them. Effectively a Cortex Starlight, looking to add some sort of long-range anti-pork weapon to the Cortex catalog. Tremor is apparently not powerful enough, yeah. Just like that, the blue team taps. What a hilarious series of events right there, with the red team continuing overwhelming pressure and eventually breaking this line with a wonderful play with the Tremors. Love the transports setting them up on the hillside. So frustrating to have to go up against that. There's not a wonderful solution. Really, you're relying on your air player to clear that up the most of the time, I would think. Let's go ahead and check out another game today. Why don't we? Show you the graphs really quickly here. Just 1 second as we look at the graphs and the stats, and we'll head on over to the other match I wanted to take a look at. The second match that I wanted to take a look at today happens to be played here on Hades Pond. The reason this match looked interesting is it was also a, well, this one was actually a relatively long one, right? So for Hades Pond, usually I expect these matches to be over within 20 minutes, especially when good players are playing. This one actually went a little bit longer than that, 30-ish minutes, I believe. Should be a good match to take a look at. Now, the red team leader in this match, this isn't a series, by the way, or anything. This is two completely separate matches, played at different time with different people. I just thought they both looked interesting. So anyways, today's red team leader for our second match, going to be none other than Kaz Nadzija. Kaznadzia. Not entirely sure how I pronounce that. Anyway, today's red leader, Kaznadzia, going to be playing as an Armada commander, playing in the flex position, I want to say. Yeah, you're mostly expected to kind of flex in a... I mean, I guess you can test mid. Basically, you're trying to vie for control over this mountain and set up something long-ranged enough to attack this mountain. So, however you want to do that, whether it's walking your commander over here and setting up LLTs, whether it's building a gauntlet or an agitator, anything like that, basically that's your job as the commander in the position that the red player has spawned in. All the way on the southern side, spawning as the blue commander, a commander that goes by the name of DB. DB going to be playing as Armada as well. Going to be going for a Lasbot early on. I think it makes a lot of sense. We've got these Duracell energy crystals here out on the front lines. Going to be worth quite a lot of energy, all said and done. Hold on, let me select a constructor right here. There we go. 2,150 energy just from those. 2,700 from the orange ones right here. There's loads of energy wrapped up in these crystals right here. All very useful if you get a Resbot latched onto them and you go ahead and start eating them up. Some maps still also have a little bit of metal in them as well. Always worth double checking by going ahead and selecting any kind of constructor, and it should tell you with the little metal field highlight pop-up. Anyhoodle, we do have a whole bunch of frontline assault units headed out already. We already have a grunt moving across the map. It's going to encounter quite a lot of these rovers. Oh yeah, go for the kill. Go for the kill. A little bit of a miss micro right there from 3Key. Didn't manage to get the kills on those rovers right there. Probably could have killed 2 or 3, maybe all 3 of them. Instead, they ran all the way around and managed to sneak past the front line right here of the Hot Pink commander, who also went on the aggression. This is what you have to be careful about. You send those units out a little too early, and suddenly you find yourself without any defensive forces. And just like that, 3 rovers make it into the backline, ready to start harassing the Maroon Commander 3Key. Almost poetic the way that 3Key nearly killed all these, and then they ended up coming back to kill him in the end. At the end of the day, though, the wind turbine is the greatest threat to any of these early T1 harassment units. Oh, amphibious constructor caught right here. Not only a dramatic expense to lose right there, but also revealing the strategy that Cezilren was going for. Yeah. Losing that amphibious constructor means that the opponent knows that you were going for those amphibious units, amphibious structures, probably looking to aim for tidal generators. Very inefficient on this map at 15 tidal speed, but there is something to be said for the fact that they are a steady, static source of energy, and they're relatively cheap to build. Means you can scale them fairly cheaply. Grunt's looking like they want to engage on the northern side here. Princess Celestia, she wants to get her forces into spec here, trying to find the right angle to engage from. Certainly 2 or 3 blitzes could kill all of these grunts if they take the fight exactly like this. Hold on. Let's run a hypothetical here. Suppose we had the grunts standing idle in this formation. Whoops, standing idle in this formation. If there was 3 or 4 blitzes moving in this formation, every single grunt that they encounter would be on that line, effectively meaning that they would be taking each individual one like a 4v1. That's what we refer to as a concave. If you've ever heard of it, I'm sure a lot of you have. The concave is really important. It's very easy to manage and beyond a reason, but you can imagine if those blitzes had swept across like this, they would effectively take, how many is this? 10 individual 1v4s rather than one big 4v10. They'd lose the 4v10, they'd win the 10 4v1s. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Anyways, we'll resume the match here. Either way, grunts are pulled back right now, so they will be spared, looking to take a better engagement, a better day. We do have incisors rolling out as well, looking to take in a lovely time. Oh, it's also worth mentioning that when you have a concave like that, you're also firing from different angles right here, and technically these ones on the outer end are 180 degrees, right? So that's 90 degrees, that's 90 degrees. They're 180 degrees apart from each other. Means that, of course, they're going to activate the full proc bonus, so these will do basically 2x the damage. Very, very important to remember that. That's another one of the reasons why the concave is so crucial to taking really efficient fights. Oh. Well, you know what else is good and efficient? AoE, and the Janus has got plenty of it. Just connected a massive missile into the middle of that massive bowl of grunts, blasting them to smithereens before they even had a chance to call their mothers and say goodbye. DB hoping desperately to set up a front line right here that locks off this choke point. Oops, getting my draw button mixed up all the time. This choke point. If we could shut down this choke point instead of 2 of these choke points, it makes it vastly easier for the blue team. Obviously, though, you have to play quite aggressive, and with 3 key already stepping forward, I mean, this is 1 mechs away from the Maroon Commander's base. If you can manage to lock down this line right here, you've effectively won the game already. Lovely engagements from the Hot Pink Commander. Oibado Nana. Oibado Nana? I hope I'm saying that right. Anyways, the Hot Pink Commander doing a lovely job engaging here. Loses a couple of those tanks to the D-gun. Not the end of the world, though. 3 key desperately in need of quite a bit more units on the front line. Yeah. Commander overflowing energy means it might be time to go for E-converters. Instead, we're going for more energy production and even some more build power here. We're actually quite heavy on the build power with 2 constructor bots as well as a construction turret. 3 key now suffering at the hands of this very aggressive front line from DB. Nice D-gun right there. Catches 2 of those medium tanks. It's a lot of metal right down the drain. Troll 1, 2, 3. Trying to keep these units out of range as much as possible while also firing them away. The Yellow Commander. Eating up all of these... Oh, I see. Eating up all these metal extractors right here. Hoping to go into some of those Salamanders. So Salamander, one of those units that we see all the time because of just how devastating they can be. Oh, 3 key in so much trouble. Commander gets shot by the... Oh, Commander gets shot. Okay, so that was cheeky. That was flanking bonus right there as well. Commander got shot from this direction by the pawn, meaning that when the Janus missiles connected from this direction, they did probably, I would warrant, about 45 to 60% extra damage right there. Meant that just the single Janus tank was able to bring down a 10% HP Commander. Usually it's closer to 8% what the Janus can do with a direct connection. Getting a little bit of a boost right there from the assisting forces. Lovely stuff. Selzarin denying the wreckage over here, but also taking quite a lot of damage for it. Yeah, there you go. You can see left at 44% HP. Definitely going to be reeling from the damage. Yeah, 36 now. DB in a lot of trouble. Decides to trade commanders. Boom, go the blue and yellow commanders on the front line. Lovely stuff. At this point, these incisors and medium tanks looking for an angle to approach. Rocketbots struggling kiting against these, or rather struggle against these tanks that are kiting them. Moving parallel with the bots. The tanks can outpace the rockets quite easily. Front line on the northern side, looking tricky. Yeah. Booty Breaker. The horrifying Seafoam Green Commander going to be stepping forward slowly but surely. And I do mean slowly. So slow you can't even see it. There they are. There they go. Quite literally 1 or 2 steps at a time, but slow and steady wins the race here. Certainly in the Rocketeer versus Aggravator duel. Whosoever manages to keep more of these rocket bots alive and running and up and standing will manage to win the battle eventually. Oh, the other problem, though, is that once you have a bunch of these rocket bots, AoE effects can hit you quite hard. Ugh. Just like that, the inferior number of rocket bots manages to beat the inferior number of rocket bots, the greater number of rocket bots, simply because the AoE effect was greater, because those bots were clumped up more. It's a tricky effect, one you have to be very, very cautious of. Commander wreckages have been well eaten up right here by the maroon and pink commanders. Gobbling up that juicy, juicy metal as quickly as possible, making sure to feed it back into the war machine. Trying to pump out units here as quickly as possible. We do have a big leak of pawns moving northward, though. Hot pink commander's in a little bit of trouble. LLT turret will eventually just be jumped. Yeah, we're trying to find the most efficient path around here, but sometimes the only efficient path is through. Just like that. The LLT will fall. Wind turbine's going to do enough damage to kill these pawns here, actually. I'm telling you, man, the wind turbine, the most powerful unit in the game. Pawn's still sprinting forward right now and still finding so much value. Lovely stuff. Princess Celestia looking to get her kill on. Smells blood in the water and wants to go ahead and go after this commander right here. 11% HP, definitely a viable target. Oh, she just barely misses the D-gun right there on that juicy clump of tanks. Disami. The, I almost want to say like the Mario Bros of Bar, right? It's a me, Mario. Wahoo! How's my Mario impression? Is that pretty good? Disami. Going to be moving forward. I have no idea if that's correct, by the way. I'm just... that is completely off cuff. I sure hope that it's not actually just a word or something that I don't know how to pronounce. Decides to jump it. Oh, 1% remaining. The commander needs one missile. Boom! Goes the commander right next to the forward laboratory. Would have been nightmarish there for the orange commander had they not been able to secure the kill right there. But because the lab goes down and because both of these commanders are lying in ruin right here, should we manage to get a little bit of a resurrection reclaim action going on right here, this is actually going to work out phenomenally for the red team. You know what? Despite losing this front line on the southern side, despite about 1.5 million medium tanks moving forward right here, with a couple good D-guns, with a couple of good positions, with basically proper micro, what are these tanks up to? Not sure what the tanks were on about right there, but they were certainly making interesting decisions. The most interesting decision does not necessarily mean the best decision. Medium tank's so hard to stop. Yeah, I was going to say, despite these winning front lines right here, we are going to have a lot more metal going back to the red team, but at this point the blue team with an overwhelming advantage of spiking upwards of 200%, but steadily around 40 to 50. Salamander's now out of the lab. They're good. They're really, really high power, and their blast does quite a lot of damage. It also can block onto these tanks, making them very good against specifically moving targets. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. Wind turbines are already going down. LLT in base here, fighting for its life, trying to stave off these medium tanks. Oh, I'm just not sure about it. Salamander's hoping and praying that they can clean all this up. And you know what? If these tanks are going to be APM stalled, then they certainly can be. That's the Cyan Commander going down. A couple of Hero Centurion waddling their way forward here. The precursor to the Strider, the Legion Strider bot. Not the end of the world, but certainly... it's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage the red team is going to have to recover from here, and I just don't see how they're going to be able to bring it back. Here's one way. About 100,000 bombers. Well, not really. It's actually quite a bit fewer than that. Looks like 12 bombers all said and done. Not the end of the world. Looks like we're going to be going for some sort of a lineup. Oh, okay, I see. We're going to be bombing the green commander, and then I guess we're rotating back and forth between bases here. We've got a Manticore to shut these down as well. Manticore, famously bad anti-air devices, but sufficient for these T1 bombers that are fairly bad. The one superpower about these, bombers, that's a pretty toxic thing to say. I can empathize with wishing your air player would save you from a bombing run, but sometimes they get beat. Not a single fighter up in the air right here for the blue team anymore. I hate T1 Armada bombers, but my goodness if they haven't gotten value Maybe too critical of the early Armada bomber. We have currently a 145 metal bomber versus a, oh gosh, I want to see a Cortex bomber. Well, no Cortex Air Lab. I'm pretty sure the Whirlwind's got to be expensive, more expensive. It hits harder. It does more damage. I don't know. I feel like it should be more expensive. Maybe it isn't, though. Sometimes I'm surprised by those things. Frontline Vehicle Lab. Going to be coming up here for the Orange Commander. Despite all that damage, the red team is recovering. We have a whole base down right now. We need to go ahead and reclaim this. Whoever's spectating and commentating, I appreciate it. Taking some weight off my shoulders. Need to take all this and turn it into T2, and I couldn't agree more. That's easily a T2's worth of reclaim right here. We do have a Hot Pink Commander desperately in need of some constructors. I'd love to see a little teamwork. Sending over some constructors to try and help with that. Amphibious constructor going for a torpedo launcher of all things. I suppose scared by the commander that's lingering on the water's edge over here, doesn't want to get captured, goes ahead and sets up the torpedo launcher to try and defend themselves. Can I have a con, Hart? Cries the Hot Pink Commander, desperately pleading for their teammate to give them something. Instead, though, their team's cold embrace has said, no, you will be food for the machine god. And instead of handing over cons and resurrecting the base and helping get their teammate back online, they've instead decided to just go ahead and build over their corpse. Sacrifices must be made, I suppose. Somebody gave a constructor. There we go. Yeah, it looks like the Pink Commander is going to be given a con here. The air cons would be a much better give, by the way. If you're ever playing air and you find yourself with spare time, spare resources, you really shouldn't if you're playing air, but it does happen. You know, life is not a perfect box of chocolates. Sometimes the best way that you can help out your teammates that have been destroyed is just by making a bunch of air cons and allowing them to use them to rebuild their base, right? Or even better yet, you can do it on your own dollar. Just set up the construction turrets, set up a lab, set up some production, hand it all over to them. Can really help out a struggling commander come up and online. Remember that economies in this game are entirely exponential, so the more you give your teammate to start with, the quicker they're going to come back into the game in a meaningful way. At least on average. Metal extractors are up and running right now, though, and the red commander is eager to build some more bombers. Looks like we do have quite a few coming out of the lab now. We are up to 14 bombers in total. Not bad, not bad. Going to allow you quite a large area. Quite a large surface area for, well, basically any kind of bombing, really. One Arbiter for long-range siege. I like it quite a lot, actually. Yep, perfect. 25% HP per missile that thing launches. Very dangerous indeed. Firing away at the gauntlet over here, making it very inconvenient for the Powder Blue Commander, who's now going to have to repair this rather than continuing their gauntlet tirade. In a certain sense, this almost hurts the Blue Commander more than it hurts anybody else. Or, pardon me, it hurts the Pink Commander more than it hurts anybody else. Why does it hurt the Pink Commander? To tear down enemy defenses? Well, Spermix 3000, the most horribly named... Wow, between the Hot Pink Commander last gamed and Spermix 3000, I don't know who has a worse name. Either way, yeah, this commander was eager to build another gauntlet right here. There would have been another 1,000 metal down the drain. Would have been interesting to see, for instance, allowing that to happen. Obviously, that's a weird call to have to make in a game. I wouldn't expect anybody to think about that while they're actually, you know, APM is soaring and they're trying to figure this out. But it is interesting to imagine, right? If you let your teammates spend that 1,000 metal and you just go ahead and let them sink that cost, you can produce so much for 1,000 metal. That's like a third of a T2 lab, several T2 units. It's a lot. Either way, though, Arbiters are pristine for dealing with static defenses here, so I expect that this T1 will be going down very shortly. There goes a bunch of the LLTs. The gauntlets are already down. These need to be re-microed right here. Anti-air tower also shooting down some of the fighters right here. It's definitely a problem. Weakening that air firewall in order to soften up this bombing run that's coming in right now. Yeah, the Lavender Commander is going to need every fighter that they've got. Timely pull right here on the bomber wave, but they do catch a lot of the fighters instead of the bombers. Oh, and just like that, the red defensive fighters managed to win the air battle once more. Anti-air is in place right here for most of these bases. Glad to see that most of these commanders were aware of the anti-air issue and resolved it by going ahead and setting up some of those much better quality anti-air defenses. Means these bombers will be shot down much quicker, but certainly not before they do manage to, at the very least, discover that the anti-air, or rather the Air Force defenses are quite thin. This is a bug that I've been seeing more and more recently. Apparently the bombers, when they go over a hill or something, they slow down quite drastically for some reason. It's very odd. 1,000 ticks blown away in an instant. It's the reason why micro is so important. If those ticks had been spread out a little bit, that wouldn't have been an issue. Unfortunately, though, those advanced metal extractors are quite explosive. You do have to be careful about that. The front line of the Red Commander has been ravaged here as well, with basically no economy left. 3 Key is in a dire situation. Needs to find a way to rebuild back into this game. Those Hounds, though, tearing apart the T1 units with ease. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and speed this game up because it looks like we're just a bunch of front lines staring at each other here. At the very least, the Wolverines are eager to get, yeah, some sort of work done here. Lightning tanks also trying their very best. Cloaked tank, uncloaked and marching forward. Not sure why it was uncloaked there. A little bit of an E-stall, perhaps. Front line in trouble. Bunch of ducks popping up and getting blasted down by a million ticks. Ducks out of water, quite bad. Ducks in water, maybe one of the best Cortex units ever. A pretty hilarious duality, that. Medium tanks looking to jump on top of these Mauser here. Mauser cannot fire backwards, so we need to kite with these. You basically want to kitty corner with them. Big old run by on the southern side. Finally, some action as the blue player decides to pull the trigger. Blue and green, Dibby and Troll 1, 2, 3, changing up their strategies here and going ahead and sending units across in mass. The brown commander spamming out ticks, though, is actually more than sufficient to blast down these units. The lightning tank's going to be, I would imagine, quite a bit better against this, but really, there's just so many tanks. Yeah. The overwhelming millions of ticks, apparently, is sufficient to blast down lightning tanks. That's, effectively the hard counter being shut down by superior numbers. It's pretty funny to see. As the humble platypus managed to tear down the yellow T2 lab. Alright. Well, just like that, this run by on the southern side has thrown this game for a loop. Apparently enough to trigger a full-blown counterattack on the northern side from the orange and tan commanders. Saying, nobody does that to our friends, and sending their units forward as well. Fiends here faring a little bit better against the ticks, I suppose. Their explosive deaths mean that they take down quite a lot of those ticks with them. Ticks essentially forced into, I guess you would call it melee combat. Zero range combat. They have very, very little firing range, means that they are forced to effectively surround anything that they intend to kill. Means that, of course, they also have to be right next to all those explosive units when they do die. Lavender Blue Commander goes down so that I don't have to look at their name anymore. Death by Mauser does not seem very particularly kind, yeah. This front line has fallen to shambles here as well. Commander dies right next to all the static defenses, means that they'll fall pretty quickly. Starlight's one hell of a unit, blasting away at anything that they can see within range. These frontline units acting as the spotters here, allowing those Starlights to pierce through even the toughest of armor platings. Anti-air mounted aback these Lightning Jaguars here. Sufficient to blast down these T1 aircraft, yeah. Oh, can we... Ah, dang it. I wanted to see the heavy T1 Armada transport, or the medium T1 Armada transport, but I was a little too slow right there. Scorpion turrets set up in base. Gonna be quite good for dealing with these. Wow, if they would stop friendly firing, I think those Scorpion turrets probably killed more Sheldon than they did lightning tanks. Mauser right here doing a wonderful job of pushing forward as well. And it looks like these Mauser have found the main production facilities here of the Red Commander. We have a nuclear bomber coming up. Something tells me that the production is going to fall before that manages to come online, though. Scorpion turret doing its very best, I mean, for what it's worth. Popping as many of these as possible. Heavy laser towers trying their best as well here. All said and done, though. The Mauser are quite powerful. They're also quite cheap, too, so this force being lost on the front lines isn't really the end of the world. Only 320 metal apiece for each one of those. Bombers friendly firing in the backline. Oh no. Another Mauser ball coming across. What a yin-yang of a match all of a sudden. Hard for me to tell who swung first, but the blue team is still in the lead as far as the economy goes. It's gonna be a matter of who can get more of these forces into position to shut off production. Right now, more of the factories right here for the blue team are shut off than the factories for the red players. No tick protection here, though. Anti-air is wonderful. We've taken out basically all of the bombers, but without really any tick protection. The only thing that's saving those Mauser from any sort of assault is the fact that their attack has a little bit of AoE to it. So when they fire, they can kill a couple of those ticks. Even so, the ticks are overwhelming, though, and they do manage to shut down those Mauser relatively easily. Lightning tanks to finish the mission. One of the units that's quite good against lightning tanks, this is such a strange one, but one of the units that's quite good against lightning tanks is, or pardon me, one of the units that is weakest to lightning tanks, is what I meant to say, is the wind turbine. Yeah. They're flimsy enough that the chain lightning effect from the lightning guns can actually do anything about it. They are usually close together that they can chain at least once, if not twice. And they're explosive, right? So the chain lightning only has to do so much damage before it actually cleans itself up quite nicely. It's a bit of a weird engagement, but you know, if you ever find yourself in desperate need of killing 100 lightning, or pardon me, 100 wind turbines, consider lightning tanks. Fiends burning across the battlefield here are going to be blasting down the bulls and all sorts of other creatures. Consoles going down here as well, and the lightning tanks have found their opening. What are good options for closers at this point? Well, the blue commander, or pardon me, the red commander looks like it's going to be going for EMP bombers. Ooh. EMP bombers are nerfed into oblivion. At one point, they were essentially well regarded as the most powerful air unit in the game. They had near infinite use case potential. You could use them to shut down up to the biggest of T3 units with relative ease. Because that was such a frustrating experience to play against, they received a very heavy nerf. They're now 38,000 energy apiece, which is massive. One of the most energy expensive units in the T2 catalog. They also take a massive amount of build power to build, and they only drop 3 bombs. So they got nerfed all around. Their cost went up, their impact went down. They got nerfed pretty hard. And one of the things that means is that we hardly ever see them in game. For the simple fact that they're very difficult to build to sufficient number that they're very useful at all. Now you can use them as kind of a specific asset removal, like if there's one Razorback sneaking across, or maybe, you know, maybe you have a, trying to think of examples, you know, a couple of Shiva, basically those light T3, sometimes you can find value with them there. Usually you're going to be better off going for Abductors, though. Abductors are quote-unquote single target. Technically their beam is actually an AoE, so they can hit multiple targets with it. But they have a distinct other advantage of being able to transport things, right? So if you EMP a bunch of things, for instance, you can also pick them up. It's one of my favorite strategies I've ever personally seen, where you EMP a whole bunch of the units, for instance, medium tanks, something like that, and then you go ahead and just lift them up, and by the time that the air forces come to kill all of those air transports, they've also shot down the tanks. Yeah. It's a brutal way to go. I mean, imagine being just paralyzed and then picked up 1,000 feet in the air, and watching as a fighter with your team's colors comes across right here. It's a brutal demise. Marauder, not having any of this nonsense. There's that EMP bomber, again, looking for value. That bomber's having a rough time. Nose deep in the laboratory. Wow. Massive E-converter. Pop manages to take down all of this. Bomber missing 2 out of its 3 shots here. Not bad. Not bad. Showing us why it's the king of nothingness. Oh, jeez. These poor bombers, man. I always try to think of, like, canonical reasons why a unit would get nerfed, right? Like, you can imagine, like, if an army loses its value. Wow. E-converter death for the brown commander right there. That was hilarious. You know, like something like, oh, they lost the technology or something. You know, it was lost in the Dark Ages. I think they just found the wrong blueprint. Yeah, I think Cortex engineers snuck into a facility to nerf the Stiletto EMP bomber. That's something that I haven't seen in a RTS campaign, like, ever. Is effectively where you choose your you kind of choose what mission to do, and it affects what how the units play for the rest of the campaign, right? You like choose to fight against this unit instead of that unit. Usually that's for the reason that making a balanced campaign while giving the player that kind of choice sends you in a infinite spiraling rabbit hole. Very difficult to balance around, but it would be cool for something like the Lich, where you like maybe research a tech option. You start with these Liches, and then you research a tech option or something that makes them quite a bit better. You know, you have to infiltrate a Cortex facility where they're trying to reverse engineer the original Lich blueprints. Once you recover them, you gain access to the OP Liches, and you can go paralyze their whole base or something. I'm so excited for this game to get a story. I love a good campaign. Hell, I'll write the thing myself if they ask me to. I'm just dying for them to ask me to. Sit down and get the creative juices flowing. Anyways, massive run by right here with these Marauders. A beautiful play right now from Troll123. Need I say more? The Marauders have torn down basically all of the production right here on the northern half of this map right now. Yeah, and indeed, the blue team manages to win our second game of the day. Nuclear bombers were coming in to seal the deal right here, but they weren't even necessary. The humble Marauder going to be more than sufficient to tear open the blue team, exposing their innards and destroying their vital productions. What a beautiful matchup beyond all reason. Thanks a ton for watching if you made it this far. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Feel free to leave a like down below or a dislike. You can actually dislike and subscribe to support me just as much as liking and subscribing. Apparently they all do the same thing. Sure hope you have a fabulous rest of your day too, and I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.